Well, welcome to the April 12th, 2022 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside Technical Sessions. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing a number of projects, but also trying to organize my ham shack and but also I was talking to Michael about using Open Web RX DE, which has quite a few improvements. Still receive only, but the waterfalls have improved and the number of receivers that they accept has improved. So that's it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Let's see, pretty much the same thing as usual. I am just continuing along, trying to keep going with research and teaching. And actually, we had a lot of ham radio club activities last week. We had Colonel Douglas Wheelock come, who's an astronaut, come visit University of Scranton and give a presentation there, and that was made possible through a connection with the Murgas Amateur Radio Club, who applied to NASA for that. And then on Saturday, we took our radio club over to the Luzerne County Office of Emergency Management to see their facility there. And then tomorrow, we're having an amateur radio club. We're having a VE session on campus. So hopefully we'll have lots more licensed and upgraded amateur radio operators as of tomorrow. I know Veronica is going for her extra, so we'll see how she does with that. WTNF, back to net.
Very good. And I had the experience of meeting Milok at DCC one year, and I had heard him on the air from the ISS. So it's kind of fun to link the parts.
That is really cool.
So next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, hello. Yes, I have been, I've been going back and forth today with, I guess it's Bob. Can't think, just had his name a second ago, but from the GRAPE project, he's writing software and he's having a little difficulty with the magnetometer board and trying to find out why. But otherwise, I've been working on just miscellaneous projects, nothing urgently interesting to this crowd. That's it for me.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Michael, AA8K. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, thanks very much. And greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And it adds to add an A at the first of your name. Moves you to the top of the list.
I put my call centers.
Yes. Okay. Next on the list is Bill, N8ET. Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, good evening. And I hooked my grape up. I finally got it done and got the Leo Bodner GPSDO all set and programmed and plugged it all in and fully expected it wouldn't work. And lo and behold, I saw first light and generated a spreadsheet in the we're out of the Raspberry Pi, so the thing is working. And I sent an email to N8OBJ to get a node, and the email bounced back saying it wasn't a valid address. So there's something wrong on the website where I picked it up from, which I think was the Hamside website, and that probably should be corrected. I was hoping he would be on here tonight and I could get a node number from him tonight here, but apparently it's not here. I'll try again Thursday, but it is working, and all I got to do is set up an antenna so that it has an antenna all the time on it, and I can set it in the corner and let it run forever. So we're all set to go now. So back to you, Dave.
Fine business. I'm sure somebody here can help you find the right email address.
Yeah, I'm sending it to you right now. Okay, Bill?
Sounds good.
Okay, next on the list is Dan N4XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening, all. As of a week ago, there's a new version of the Raspberry Pi OS out there, and they made a fairly major change in that the default user has always been Pi, and now they allow you to choose the default username. And unfortunately, that caused a whole bunch of problems with my scripts because in a couple of cases, I really didn't do the right thing, and I used Pi instead of $US capital USER to describe the user. So I had to go back and change a few of those and then try them out. So that kind of kept me busy. One other thing is Tom, N5EG had mentioned a few months ago a YouTube channel called Explaining Computers. And Chris Barnett, who runs that channel, is doing a series on RISC-V single board computers. So I would suggest that anybody who is interested in small, relatively inexpensive single board computers take a look at the last few programs that he's done. They're quite good, and they'll give you an idea of a few things that compete fairly successfully against the Raspberry Pi and some of the other stuff that's out there. Anyway, that's it from here. Thanks, Dave.
Fine business, and thanks for the tip. Next on the list is Dave AC2BA. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening to everybody. I'm just new to the group. I'm just interested to see what's going on, so I'm auditing this. I had watched the HAMSci conference a couple weeks ago and have some interest in pursuing these things. Back to you, Dave.
Well, welcome, and we hope that you come back. This is a place to learn about things, so I hope that you find something interesting to follow up on. Okay, next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone in the group. And Bill, congratulations on getting your grape up and going. And at the rate things are happening, I wouldn't be surprised if we're in double digits in the node numbers or close to 100 or whatever by the time the grape 2 comes out, but that's okay. That's a great thing. So far as happenings here, I finished my 20-meter antenna project. I just finished documenting it in the engineering notebooks and put all that stuff away. So now it's time to enjoy some of the crazy things that have been happening on the bands. The sun's been pretty active and the band's been acting up and a lot of crazy things been happening, but that's part of the fun, right? So enjoying that. Back to net.
Fine business. And next on the list is James, KG4DSG. Go ahead, James.
Good evening, Dave and the group. Not much going on here. I've been looking at some low-cost USB microcontrollers based on some stuff from last week. It's amazing what you can buy these days. Well, if you can find them. They're listed as existing parts, but nobody has any. So with that, back to the net.
Well, fine business. It's part of our times that we're living in. So next on the list is JWB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Really nothing new to report here. So 7-3, everybody, stay safe and catch you later on down the log. See you next time. Oh, and we've got holidays coming up here this weekend. So Friday night is the first Seder of Passover. So happy Passover and happy Easter this weekend.
Okay, thank you. And next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, good evening, all. Not a whole lot to report here. I kept forgetting to post. I've got just a little bit more Tonga information I want to put up where I had looked at my own QTH, since that's the only one I had the data for. what happens with the long way around the world? Could I see anything that would have happened when the effects hit me from the long way around the world and also the second pass? And the answer is that there was a lot happening when the long way around the world got there. But is it because of Tonga, or is it because of something else? I still can't figure that one out. I'm unfortunately a little bit behind on some of the stuff that's been going on because I've been tied up. I have been working on an antenna project. I had wanted a sort of a vertical polarized 10-meter antenna for some local network, and had been planning on a J-pole, but I got to modeling it over the weekend and found out that for what I want, the J-pole doesn't look necessarily quite as good as a vertical dipole, and that's a little bit easier to feed. That's the problem with the vertical dipole, is it's hard to feed, but I think I may try that anyway. However, when I modeled a conductor close to it, trying to figure out about what the pine tree I've got to hang it from is going to do, the J-pole was less affected than the dipole was for some reason. However, my model I know is absolutely no good. And if anybody can think of a way to model a pine tree in Easy Neck, I would appreciate it. Back to Net K4BSE.
Fine business. And I know it's a lot of fun trying to model in EasyNet. So, okay, next on the list, we have Joe, K7LUX. Go ahead.
Oh, find the unmute button here. Good evening, everybody. I've seen a few more flares since last week, solar flares. So they're showing up every once in a while in the data. A comment for Jim, and that is that I made a vertical, an end-fed vertical dipole. It's a half-wave dipole, and basically there's a toroid choke at the bottom of the dipole, and the feed line just continues on out of the antenna. It works pretty well for 20 meters. Yours would be half that tall, so it might consider that. And basically, it's just a piece of coax where I stripped everything off for the upper conductor, and then a quarter wave down the from the center of that is a choke to sort of keep the RF from going back down the feed line. I actually need a better choke. Anyway, you might look into that. It was described by one of the publications that Palomar Engineers or Engineering put out some time back. Dan, I have a question for you about the Grape software. I have the original, or what's original to me, version from about a year ago. How high a priority is it to upgrade, or my copy of the operating system? Mine seems to be working pretty well.
I'd say it's not real important to upgrade it. I don't think there's anything in there that's really affected by older packages. So I'd say just keep it the same as it is. It's working great. Perfect.
It's actually working quite well. So, okay, thank you very much. And back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. There was some geomagnetic storming this past weekend. Actually, Sunday morning, the KP index reached 7 with G3 storming. So I was looking at the events folder of my VLF system, and to my complete and absolute surprise, there was a chorus events detected. So actually, Sunday morning, it's almost it was a 2.5 hour long chorus event with a beautiful peak in intensity. The detector only detected about like maybe there were like 5 or 6 chunks of 6 seconds long of risers, and normally the detector should record the whole event, but the reason why that it didn't was because the chorus was below the noise floor, and those mains harmonics increase the noise floor, so the detector doesn't work all that well. But what I did was I went back through all of the data, and I found the start and the end, or at least in terms of what the antenna could pick up. And it was over 2.5 hours long, an absolutely beautiful chorus event. I'll play a short sample. Let me just share the appropriate player here. Okay. What I did was I added a gain of 22 dB, which is a factor of 10 to make it more audible. If you listen carefully, and if you turn up your sound, you could hear those risers in the background, those beautiful risers. And what's so crazy about this is these are fairly rare events. Now at our latitude, it's actually normal, but this is is actually kind of rare for me because I was never able to pick them up with my handheld. But that's why that we have an automated system with software that automatically detects these events, and it could detect them when we're sleeping, and that's what happened. So what I plan on doing now with this data is I'm going to take a snippet of the peak, which is what you're hearing now, the loudest risers, because what it does, it'll begin low with a couple risers, and then eventually move to a peak of high intensity risers like you're hearing right now, and then they die down. So what I plan on doing is I plan on making some videos with samples and spectrograms that will actually show the spectrogram as the audio sample is playing. I'm figuring out how to do that with FFmpeg, and but yeah, again, beautiful event captured. I never thought that it would. I was actually quite excited about it. I jumped for joy once I saw the spectrogram. So yeah, more to come of this. This is really exciting. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Well, fine business. Congratulations on catching that. Next on the list is Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael.
Good evening, everybody. I figured out some problems with my current listening system, one of which was the fact that I'm doing whisper soundings, even though they're 0.2 watts. They were showing up as regular sawtooth in the grape data, and then I also figured out how to make an adjustment to kind of zero it out, and so it looks a little bit better. I wish I knew what time. Is there any possibility that what Jonathan observed would show up in the receiver data that for the listening to WV, I wonder. Otherwise, I'm sad to report I contracted COVID, and I'm in my basement right now. I've been immunized, so it's not all that bad. It's just it's kind of like a mild flu, and I feel like I'm getting better. So to echo what was mentioned previously, everybody be safe. I was flying back from Puerto Rico, unfortunately. I think that's where I caught it. Not in Puerto Rico, probably on an airplane. Back to.
Well, glad to hear you're feeling better, Michael, and stay safe and get healthy. Next on the list, we have Noel, WB0VGI. Go ahead, Noel.
There, yeah, good evening, everybody. Some of you have seen the emails I've sent out. I'm working with the UCLA team to recover a large array of magnetometers that basically go from Gulf of Mexico to Hudson Bay. And we have 11 stations now that are in some phase of operation. It's a UCLA under Peter Chi project. In addition, I put up on my picture here, and I put in the chat links to the magnetometers. I have 2 sets of magnetometers, or actually 3 sets of magnetometers running down the hill. One is the original Themis magnetometers, fairly low noise, fancy magnetometer system. One is the RM3100, and one is the FLC 100s. And those are all visible. I put over in the chat links over to my Adafruit cloud. And then on my little picture, you can see that's Sunday morning's K index from just my data rose to about 5 or 6. So that I've been working with RM3100. It seems to be appropriate for a low-cost magnetometer system. And we have, like I say, have one running here and one running in the shop where I've been playing with the various protocols that it operates. Thank you, Dave.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Scotty, WA2DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, some good progress this week. Still moving forward on the layout of the adapter board. It's we'll actually have the layout already. Working on the routing now. The CAD, our CAD guy's working on the routing now. So I'm thinking we might actually have something by the end of the week to kind of beat on a little bit and check and make sure we did everything right. And if that's the case, I want to progress right to PC boards as fast as I can, so we can possibly get something by hand mention. I'm not holding my breath. We'll see, because I got to go offshore to get the board, and you know what that means. Checked up out our FPGAs. They still are sticking to their story, so we'll see about the end of May. And also completed the preliminary schematic for the clock module carrier board, and has been reviewing it with Tom and John, and try and make sure we get everything connected up right, so we can get all of the IOs and everything out. So it's looking pretty promising for that. And also, I don't know if I may have done this last week. It's all kind of merging together in my brain here, but I've got the loopback boards all done also, and they're turned into the CAD guy. So I think I did that last week, but maybe it was just last Friday. It's there's too many boards and too little differentiation between them. And by the way, on the adapter board, we have bought all the parts, so there's not going to be any parts issues with those. Hopefully, knock on wood. My desk is wood, so I can do that. And the parts that are on the loopback boards, the loopback boards are needed for manufacturing testing of the DE module, and they will also help with the adapter, the DE adapter board too. It basically is an RF module and a clock module and a leaf module that just loop back the signals to the connector. So we can plug them on, write some quick code on the FPGA. We can verify that everything got soldered down properly and is talking to all the pins. So it would be very valuable for manufacturing tests, especially since if we send these offshore, a set of these boards will go offshore with them. and the manufacturer will be responsible for doing the test. We'll provide them the FPGA code, and that way we won't get any boards that are dead that we have to fix. If they're dead, then the manufacturer has to fix them. And especially if they're offshore, it makes it almost impossible to ship them here, test them, ship them back, test them, and then go back and forth. So what we want to do is make sure that they test them and fix any problems before they even leave their factory. So anyway, lots of progress this week. So back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business. That sounds good. Next on the list is Tom N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Good evening, Dave. Good evening, everyone. It's been an interesting week. Gave a presentation on Hamside at a local club. Very well received. I'd given the same presentation about 6 weeks ago to the Willamette Valley Club. So a lot of folks interested. Good Q&A, and a lot of people very keenly interested in what's going on in the project. I had a chance to meet the maintainer of NTP, the Network Time Protocol. Turns out he lives about 10 miles from me. And so I got a chance to see his development lab and triple redundant GPS timing. So that was pretty interesting. Other than that, I've been looking at reviewing what John Ackerman's been doing on the clock module. He's starting to get some results from his collection of eval boards and test boards and oscillators that he's plugging together. The data seems encouraging there. And I've looked a little bit over what Scotty did and typed up a summary of where we are on the data engine C code and things we're waiting for to make forward progress. So pretty productive week overall. Back to the group.
Well, fine business. And I believe that brings us to the end of the list, unless anyone says otherwise. We'll open it for general discussion.
I should make one more announcement. I've been working on getting the Hamvention logistics for Hamsci going this week. So Hamsci will have a booth that is directly adjacent to Tapper. So we will be booth 5008 and Tapper will be right next to Tapper. So we're planning on having a Hamsci forum. We're still going to have booth talks that will be over in the Ham Radio 2.0 area. And the Hamsci booth is funded by Yasmi.
Very good.
So Scotty, I'm excited about your news.
Yeah, it's finally some forward progress. And I guess the thought of actually getting FPGAs is getting me fired up. So you gotta get some things done. I'd like to be done with this hardware so I can concentrate on FPGA stuff and get that moving. And it's cool. You're going to be right next to us at Hamvention.
Yep.
We're doing some more Hamvention planning the end of this week. And I was just gonna check and see. Has anybody looked on the Hamvention page? Have they put up the forums yet? Anybody know? I'm looking right now. So let's see, forums. Usually it's not quite this early. Yeah, it's still coming soon. So you have to wonder why we have to have everything in by March and then they don't have anything up on the web. But hey, that's okay. We got our forums filled and gonna have 3 very interesting ones. And details will be forthcoming. So do you have all yours set up, Nathaniel? Have you got?
I do. My forum's only an hour. I thought I had an hour and 15 minutes. I did, I guess, 2 years ago, but this year it's only an hour.
Oh.
I still put 4 people in there, so I guess we better stay on task and stay on time.
Okay. Get the hook out.
Yep. So I think the last 2 will kind of run together because it will be Diego will start talking about TIDs that we see in the RBN and WhisperNet and PSK Reporter, and he'll talk about the climatology of them, and then Bill Engelke will follow up with that, showing how he's detecting them with machine learning. So those 2 will kind of they're two people, but they'll kind of make one talk.
So there'll be the last two talks then?
The last two. And then the first talk is going to be Veronica talking about the grape and what she's done with it at her house and what she's working on. And then you will be number 2.
Okay.
And I keep saying to everyone that your talk is just going to be a live stream of a camera right at your front door. And that during the live stream, it's going to show the delivery man delivering a box of 25 Intel Max 10 FPGAs.
And we're going to rip the box open live on camera and show that it's not just like rocks or something that they're delivering.
That's right. So I'm really looking forward to your talk, Scotty.
Yeah. Well, okay. I don't know that the timing will be right, but that's the problem is that your forum's in the morning on Saturday, right?
I know it's in the afternoon.
Right.
It's like
that might be a chance then.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 hours earlier here, so that'll be in the morning. Usually UPS comes in the afternoon though, so.
Mm-hmm.
So if it comes Thursday or Wednesday, we could like set it out there and stage it again just to show that it showed up.
Oh, no, we can't have any fake news.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Well, we just got to be sure there's something in the box.
It's a recreation.
I got lots of Altera boxes here. I could fake it, but I want you got to open it up in real time and see that there's parts in there.
You better have
Got
your
the
X-ray
X-ray
machine
machine ready?
handy.
That's right. No, we'll open the box. We just won't open the pouch. I'll trust the label on the pouch to be all right, because it'll be a fancy, barcoded and all that, beyond what my effort to fake will be. So it's.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it's been amazing. We've been trying to get the Tapper account set up at DigiKey so we can buy the things that we need, and we did finally get the last part, I think, yesterday ordered. But we went to order and this is a 22 microfarad 1206 capacitor, right? This is just a common part that, well, the original part number went out of stock, so we substituted it. And then by the time we got around with fiddling around with the account to go to order it, the substitute was sold out. So we go back and look, and the original part now is back in, and they got like 120,000 of them. So just go figure. I mean, you just don't know what's going to show up and what's not going to show up. So, I'm hoping that, if we get the magnetometer, if we get the magnetometer part, the I2C part, if it comes in a week early, I could have boards by Hamvention. But I'm not holding my breath. Usually it'll be a week late. And then, but at any rate, we're planning at the very least to take an interest list at Hamvention for people who want to just drop their email on a list, and we'll email out notification when we get the boards ready to sell, which should be within a week or two at the most from Hamvention. So, and then they'll be up on the website right after that. So be able to buy 100 if you want. Not sure why you do that, but
got to make a whole bunch more.
Hey, we can do that. The second round is easier. And if they sell out fast enough, I'm all for making a bigger number for the second round. So we'll see how it goes. Typically what happens is a rush at the beginning and you sell a few of them pretty quick. Like you might sell 50 of them immediately, and then it drops off to 2 or 3 a week from then. And unless something big happens, like a university finds out that they can buy them and they want to buy a bunch, or a project comes up that somebody wants to buy a bunch, then that would be an aberration. But it's like Whisper boards. We sell a bunch right out the gate when we first get them, and then we just kind of slows down, and it's just a steady flow. So that's okay. The purpose is to have them available long term. So when we get down to a low amount, we'll have to decide how many we're going to build for the next build.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to mention quick, the person who asked about those chorus emissions. Was that Michael or was that Noel? Because I wasn't sure, but anyway, so those chorus emissions, they occurred at the ULF band around 3 to 4 kilohertz. So you won't be able to pick that up with a standard amateur receiver or anything that the Grape picks up. That was a special built VLF receiver that I built. That is it's sensitive between about 300 kilohertz all the way up to 300 hertz all the way up to 150 kilohertz. And a Raspberry Pi sound card actually recorded that. So I just wanted to answer that question.
Sorry, it's a train.
Thank you.
Some hand receivers will get down to like 100 kilohertz.
So that particular signal, though, would there be anything comparable happening to the ionosphere, though, that, or is it an independent emission just down at that frequency?
Chorus emissions tend to originate from the magnetosphere, and they are usually the product of geomagnetic storming when particles hit the atmosphere at the right place with the right magnetic orientation. They could generate those sorts of events.
Those are up above the ionosphere.
Yeah.
Following the magnetic field lines pole to pole.
And there are also auroral radio events that occur, like auroral roar and other sorts of events that actually occur closer to the ham bands.
Yeah, those are in HF around like 2.7, 2.8 megahertz, but
Yep.
you have to be north of the aurora to hear it. That's where we put our equipment.
Right. Right. And the good thing is about chorus is you can be south of the aurora, and it has even been detected at as south as Texas. There was a receiver that was active in Texas for many years, and it actually it detected chorus. Even though it's rare, it definitely can happen. So that was pretty cool. David, I don't know if you joined late, but the system recorded a 2.5 hour long chorus event Sunday morning when there was G3 storming going on.
Right. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I just joined on. I was on a different call.
So, David, do you have any comments?
I guess I'll just say hi to the net. Nothing earth shaking, and I guess got in just at the end of Scotty's update. So I guess back to net.
I just thought I'd we called the roll. I mean,
Yeah, I understand.
thought I'd
I
give
don't
you a
have
chance.
anything major to report, just working on the same old projects. We're hoping to get one of our systems up to Baffin. Well, we're delivering it to New Brunswick to ultimately get it up to Baffin Island in a couple of weeks. That's the big one I'm working on right now. And then our Antarctica project for human. That, by the way, yeah, I will bring up that that's supposed to have a chirp sounder attached to it. It's up in the air as to what the hardware is, I guess. I'm not responsible for that, but I am interested in that. So have we gotten a chirp sounder idea that uses less than 128 gigabytes of RAM?
Not yet. I'm starting to have some new students work on the chirp sounder again. I don't know that we'll get to figuring out how to make it work with less than 120 gigabytes of RAM, but that would be nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and of course we need to work with Yuha on this probably, but I would hope that the FPGA can be programmed as essentially a scanning receiver rather than pulling the whole, the entire band in and then analyzing it later.
Yeah, that would be
Once you
nice.
identify individual transmissions, should be
Mhm.
able to follow them in real time.
Dave, there is a white paper on the Tangerine SDR site where we talk about FPGA code alternatives. It was probably written about 18 or 24 months ago. You may want to take a quick look at that. It's in a folder on TangerineSDR.com called White Papers.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
I think the problem is that isn't like the chirp detection. So I think by the time the way Yuha writes it, I think by the time he detects the chirp, he needs to go back and then de-chirp it, and he has to look back in time. But if you knew at the beginning when the chirp was starting, then you wouldn't need so much RAM.
Right. Well, I thought that once you identify a particular signal source, you should know when it starts, because they have to be synchronized to UT or GPS.
Yeah, so that works for, say, a couple of days or a day maybe.
Mhm.
And then what happens is, for whatever reason, they restart the machine, and maybe it, for the first maybe it was starting at like 3 minutes after the hour, but they restart the machine and now it starts at 5 minutes after the hour. So it's not consistent. So then you have to basically, again, you could probably figure out the new schedule, but then you have to go and you'd probably miss a few cycles.
Yeah. Now, now I know you're using more than the what's set up specifically as chirp sounders. The chirp sounders themselves should be on a very well-known schedule, synchronized to GPS. But if you're using signals of opportunity that are not specifically chirp, like over the horizon radars or such, then you may have to work it backwards.
Yeah, which, like, we're looking at the, I guess, the Rother radar in Chesapeake, Virginia.
Right.
So that one will change every day or a couple days, depending.
Yep. Now here's another idea: is if we're using that and we have a receiver set nearby, we may be able to use that for reference and synchronize our other receivers with it.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's something we thought about too, but yeah, we haven't implemented, but I do think that would work.
Right. We're all going to be networked, so
yes,
that would help the processing considerably.
Yes.
So it's time to party. That was my contractor. He said he saved me 100K.
Ooh.
So now I got to go spend 100K on a party, right?
That's right.
Actually, it's only over by 200K instead of 300K. Tell you
That's
what,
good.
That's all right. In Arizona, I
Yes.
don't think they can take your house away when you declare bankruptcy, can they? So
Yeah, I
So-
think that's like going out and buying things on sale. Think of all the money you saved on things you wouldn't have bought otherwise.
that's the Gracie Allen approach, right? She saved $50 on that dress, so she went and bought something else with
Right.
money. But I just can't believe it's like these amounts that I'm talking about are so astronomically high, and the contractor just throws them around like, oh yeah, it's 50K for that, 20K for that. I'm going like,
It's not your money. It's
well,
not
that's-
his money, I mean.
Well, that's what we were talking about, Noah. The architects and the engineers and the people who were designing the house, they over design it. The electrical guy, I would have fired on the first day if I had hired him. My architect hired him, but he puts in, I asked for 600 amp service. He puts in 1,000 amp service. He puts in these god awful expensive bolt-in breakers. And we have, like, in the house and the shop and the garage, I think we have about 80 circuit breakers. So you can imagine they go from $10 or $20 Home Depot type ones, snap-in ones, to $100 plus breakers, times 40, times 80 rather. He says that guy cost you $10,000 in your electrical system alone just by not bothering to talk with you and see what you wanted. Well, we talked with him and he had to do it over. But then I had to pay him to do it over, which seemed to be a little unfair since he never asked me in the first place. So just like my joke is, you take your car in to have it painted. You say, I want it painted red, and you come back the next day and it's painted blue. You say, well, that's not what I want. He says, oh, we can paint it red for you. It'll be another $2,000. And that's what it was. It was a, don't ask me. I mean, I told you what I wanted. You didn't do what I wanted, and now you want to charge me to make it the way I want it. So anyway, I'm debating whether to file complaints afterwards. There's no such thing as like a Yelp for civil engineers, or you can put like a review up.
Oh, you mean they're like police officers?
Well, there's the PE board. I mean, they're all registered.
What's
So
the
you can file a
what's the-
complaint, but the problem is that they mostly will tend to defend their own, if you know what I mean. So you got to have a pretty egregious complaint before you can make it stick.
Yeah, what's the special coverage that the police officers get? Something immunity?
Oh yeah. Well, it's like the Good
Presumptive
Sam laws,
immunity.
right? If you come upon somebody who's like in a burning car and you pull them out of the burning car so they don't get killed, and you hurt them by doing that, you can't be sued because you're doing what was the most expeditious thing to try and help them. So, but yeah, I know what it's called. I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we've just an aside on that. They've only just opened that up here in New Hampshire, where we
So they
have
didn't
an
have it?
idea of what officers might have gotten into trouble on.
So they didn't have that immunity before, and they do now.
Well, they have the immunity, but it was their transgressions were kept secret.
Oh,
now we have a list of officers that have had some issue come up, but we fought hard to get that.
well, so there's any repercussions of repeat offenders that keep getting lawsuits filed against them and having the insurance company having to pay?
Not much.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I'd like to be able to warn people about this, but like for instance, the electrical engineer, I didn't hire him. My architect did.
Yeah.
And so it's
There
like,
should be a better business bureau or something for professional engineers.
there should be, but anyway, and the problem is it's such a relief when it's over that you don't even want to go back and revisit it by stirring up the pot again,
Right.
So anyway,
So I guess the one thing I'll ask is how are the adapter boards doing?
It's doing okay. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture to show because I haven't really gotten anything back yet. I've done Zoom sessions with our CAD guy, so I kind of know. And did I put the new drawing up last time? Maybe I didn't.
You did put a drawing
Yes.
up last week.
Yes.
Did I showed you how we rearranged everything?
Yes.
Okay,
It
so it's
showed
still,
all the boards connecting.
yeah, so it's still the same. We rearranged it from the original topology and moved some of the boards around because it fit better. And we think we have everything now that we have all the parts. We have the CAD guy working. As soon as he gets done, we can submit it for fab and build. So fabbing the PC boards and assembling them. And there's really not a lot on them. I mean, everything's on the off the shelf board. It's just connectors. There's a couple power supplies, but mostly easy. And so Nathaniel, I was planning only to build like 12 of these.
Mhm.
That reasonable? I don't want to waste money building boards for development kits we don't have.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. And then I'm going to build 5 sets of loopback boards, probably more than we'll ever need, but I want to have enough so that we can have multiple. And then, because the thing is, you can not only can use it for manufacturing tests, but if you have a board that you've been using for a while and something happens to it and you don't think it's working right, you can maybe borrow a set of these boards and plug them on and run the manufacturing test. So I'd like to have a couple extra sets sitting around to be able to loan out if we need to do that.
That is a good idea.
And actually, I think I'm going to be able to use these. I can't use the leaf board because we don't have a leaf connector, but I'll be able to use the RF module and the clock module dummy boards, loopbacks, to test the adapter board. So, argument for getting them out all at the same time. So, anything else? Because I think I'm about ready to.
What are you yawning? It's earlier there.
That's because I stay up till 5 in the morning working on this stuff, and then I can't sleep all day, so I have to get up. And then it's like when I used to work at. I entered in a dubious agreement with the guy that I was working with on hardware at Motorola, and the deal was that he wasn't an early guy, and of course I wasn't either. But I agreed to come in at like 4 a.m. to essentially work from 4 a.m. to noon. And then he'd stay late. So he'd work maybe 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we'd overlap a couple hours. But, because we were sharing the same hardware, we only had one set. So we couldn't just hog it and say, get away. We had to both work on it. The problem is, if you're the early guy, when noon comes around, it's lunchtime for everybody. And they wonder why you're leaving. Here we go again. Hold on a second. I gotta take, this is my contractor again, so I can't, I'll be back.
Has anyone heard of anyone having difficulty with the magnetometer prototypes that have the CAT or the RJ45 connector at right angles to the length of the board? Having trouble with those, especially with the grape, using them in any way with the grape setup?
Are you thinking there are problems?
Evidently Bob, not sure, Bob, Robert Benedict, who's working with John Gibbons. I guess he's a software guy. He can read and write to the temperature sensors, but the minute he tries to read or write on the bus to the magnetometer module, it reboots the Pi, I guess, or takes it down anyway, rather dramatically. And I'm having a hard time grasping how that could happen, but
Yeah,
it does seem to know what he's doing. And, I just heard about it first this morning, and I've spent a lot of the day trying to get a clear description of exactly what's happening. But he's working on the grape too. So I just wondered if
Yeah,
anybody.
that's a strange problem.
Yeah, I mean, usually it means you're short in the IO bus somehow.
Yeah, or something's marginal on a power supply and it's
Yeah,
pulling it down.
Raspberry Pis are real flaky with power.
Is he using one of our boards or one of your boards?
He's
Dave?
using it looks like the earlier of the two of your boards, the prototypes. And that's the one with the through holes on the magnetometer.
Yeah,
And
so here's a question then. Did it just start doing this, or has it always done this from the beginning?
I think he just got this stuff from John Gibbons to test this. And there was at least once when it looked like he was at least talking to the magnetometer board in the results I saw. But overall, I think he's just getting down to it.
Okay, because on that old revision board, there are a couple of inputs that come back from the magnetometer that drive interrupts on the Raspberry Pi. And it could be that the Pi's not powering down, it's just going into the weeds because he's getting an interrupt that's enabled and there's nobody to handle it. So if I can give him some, but he has to pull the jumpers off that enable the interrupts. So if he may have a jumper in the wrong spot that could maybe cause this.
He certainly was fooling the jumpers to begin with, because he was confused about the 23 address for the magnetometer, as it's not the default. And
yeah, and actually it reminds me, if you put the jumpers in the wrong place on that board, I think you can. Does he have the remote connected up, or is he just using the local?
He's using both local and remote.
Because he could get the remote that might turn the transistor across the 5-volt supply if he puts the wrong jumper on, and that would certainly overload that little Raspberry Pi wall wart enough to dump it.
Yeah.
One thing he might try, if he has an analog meter with a needle, put it on the 5 volts and see if it dips any when the.
Okay, I hate to encourage him to keep doing this, because it may just not recover one.
What do you have for documentation on the jumpers for that particular version?
They're on the schematic.
Yeah, you may.
I believe he's got a Rev D, so.
Yeah, that'd be the thing. Double check jumpers.
Yeah.
Rationalize those.
Well,
yeah.
Does John use I²C on the grape?
Well, at this point, what this person is trying to do is just talk to the magnetometer in the most direct, straightforward way, the way we do it all the time. And I know we certainly tried it at the default addresses. We tested those Rev D boards.
Well, here's another thing you could do, Dave, is pull the magnetometer daughter card off and then try to access it, because if it doesn't reboot then it's that ready line coming off of the magnetometer that's probably causing trouble.
Okay, I'm ready line. Okay, that's something I'll suggest tomorrow morning. I'm going to try and take the Rev D boards that I have here and duplicate, at least verify that it doesn't always do that. I'm sure, I know we tested that, but I don't know that we tried putting the jumpers in every conceivable
Yeah.
setup.
Well, I'm sure you can find a destructive case.
Yeah. And yeah, some people are better than others at that, but yeah, I think he started off confused, and it may have he may have wandered into the weeds. That alone is useful, and I may have to get in touch with you, Scotty, about this, because it's if I'm not perfectly clear what could cause it.
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do, if you can take a close-up picture of the board, then I can tell you if the jumpers are in the wrong spot or not.
Yeah, he sent me a close-up picture, but he sent me a picture of the underside of the board, and not the part, not with the jumpers. And so I'm gonna, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm gonna encourage him to do the other side of the board as well. But no, he seems to be a guy who knows what he's doing. But they pulled me into the conversation, after they'd apparently been talking about it for a good while. And so it took me a while to even understand what the problem was exactly. And now I do understand, but I want to get them going the right way, that's all. And the fact that that it doesn't take a dive at the very first, when he plugs it in, that it's under software control in any way. And he did it both by using the command line settings, and if he addresses the magnetometer module at address 23 hex, it does this. He can do it by modifying and rebuilding the C code, or he can do it using the command line.
Now, 23, is that the remote or the local one?
Well, that's the magnetometer module itself, the PNI module.
That's on the remote board, though.
Yeah, it's always on the remote board. Yeah. And the temperature sensors at 18 and 19 hex behave normally, but it's just something about going after.
Scotty, do the interrupts only come in when accessing the magnetometer?
No.
The
But to set them
temperature
up, yes.
sensors would also interrupt?
Temperature sensors don't interrupt.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't interrupt, but the magnetometer
Correct.
does.
Right. You're right. Yes. And so the line that comes out, it's the data ready line that comes out. And it goes back. I'm looking at the schematic now. It goes back out. If he has the jumper on, it can go back out the cable.
Okay.
And I mean, if there's
Okay,
two
I'm
interrupts,
understanding.
so if an interrupt might do it, but yeah. So if you're not using interrupts, I think the short of it is you can just pull the jumper off completely. You can pull all the jumpers off completely. One jumper is used to enable the write to the board. In fact, if you, it depends on whether it has a D board or an E board.
It's a D board, I'm almost certain.
A D board. Okay, so you should not really need any jumpers. Because you don't want any. See, I'm trying to see how that would go. Now that will come back. The LCD trigger. Yeah, because it shares it depends on whether it's a local or remote guy. It shares the line and it goes one way or the other depending on which end you're on.
I think he's setting this up as remote. He's always seeing 3, and he can do a detect. I do see detect on the bus, and he often sees a 60 hex also, which I'm not quite sure where that's coming from.
60?
Yeah.
It might be something that John Gibbons.
Yes,
Mm,
he on a great board?
I asked about this, and this is so far virgin. It hasn't done any, they haven't done anything grape to it. It has no special grape hardware or grape software on it.
So he hasn't plugged on any great boards underneath our board here?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Because I know we share the I2C bus and we use different addresses, so that
Yeah.
could cause trouble if there was an errant access from the grape. But see, that's
Right.
the thing is, those data ready lines, see on the Rev E, those interrupt lines, we removed them.
Yeah, because we really never use that data ready in that way, in the way it was, to interrupt I mean, I can, I understand why you would do it almost reflexively. I would too, but but we really just don't do that in this setup. So, and that may have something to do with it. He may have stuck I'd need a picture of the top of the board, I guess. That's kind of my next ask. So, and if that doesn't reveal anything, I'll probably have to get back to you. But otherwise, but yeah, these are the ones with the RJ45 at right angles to the length of the board, and so I assume they're Rev G. Mhm. That's more information. That's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you put the jumper on 1 to 2 for the local side, and you put no jumper on the remote side, I think you'll be okay. There's a 3-pin local remote header, so you want to jumper 1 and 2 on the local side because that adds a pull up to the interrupt and makes it not asserted. And if you don't put any jumper at all on the remote side, it doesn't allow it to send anything out. So it won't give you any trouble. It won't assert the interrupts. And then make sure you keep the address jumper off of both of them, because when you plug it on the Pi, it automatically adjusts the addresses. So you don't need it. The address jumper is for people like Jules who want to hook up several of them together.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he began with all this. He started right off the bat because the RM,
the Run Mag software uses the old defaults by default, and he was trying to figure out how to get it to work, and so he started jumpering things on the boards rather than changing software options. And so that probably, it feels like that kind of a problem, unless something has gotten damaged in all the machinations. But that feels like what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you didn't expect them to need any address jumpers. But yeah, so okay, well, that gives me, I was kind of run out of suggestions here for tonight.
Well, send me an email if you got any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll try to be clear what we're up against. So will do. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I might say 73. I'm getting really tired.
Yep, I'm going to say 7-3 also. And we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you. 7-3.
Take care.
3.